The Roundup was invented by Frank Hrubetz and Company in 1954. The ride featured a rotating disc powered by 2 electric motors connected to the disc with car tires. The ride has between 30 and 36 independent standing seats for riders. The disc is connected to a central lifting arm that can lift the entire ride to over a 50-degree angle. Though to save on maintenance costs, most Roundups do not go this high and instead average about a 45-degree tilt. The Roundup became a huge success nearly instantly. With the high demand, Hrubetz decided to license the design of the Roundup to several manufacturers in Europe and Australia, focusing on domestic orders only. Many European manufacturers would eventually create Roundups, and we'll get to those in a moment. With the popularity of the Roundup growing, not just with traveling fairs, but also with parks, Hrubetz introduced the Super Roundup sometime in the 1960s or early 70s. This was a larger version of the Roundup with 42 seats, ideal for parks, but still transportable. Both models proved to be very popular, with over 70 Hrubetz Roundup rides being produced for the United States. Today, many can still be found operating. One operating example of an original Roundup is Riddle Me This at Six Flags America. This ride does not tilt as much as some of the other original Roundups, but it still has kind of a nice facade around it and fits into its whole area a lot better than you might expect for a traveling ride. Much more Super Roundups remain operating, with one example being Fantasy Fling at Great Adventure, Six Flags Great Adventure. This ride has been relocated and rethemed several times throughout the park, and this really showcases the Super Roundup's portability and ability to just kind of fit into any area of a park. There's also Electric Rainbow at Stricker's Grove. This is probably one of the most pristine Super Roundups in operation. For its age, it's in fantastic shape and runs much like all Roundups did back in the 1970s. Frank Hrubetz Company stopped manufacturing rides in 1992. After this point, several other ride manufacturers began creating their version of the Roundup, with one of the most prominent being the now-defunct Dartron. Dartron created their first Roundup-inspired ride around or before 1995, named the Zendar. This ride was very different and much more visually appealing than the Roundup. This ride featured an extra movement compared to the standard Roundup. The ride was able to lift up on the main lifting arm, but the rider plate would remain horizontal. Once at full height, the ride would move the rider plate into alignment with the main lifting arm. This gave riders a much more extreme experience by allowing them to encounter different amounts of centrifugal force. At least 5 of these rides were produced, but sadly none are known to be operating today. The model was discontinued sometime before Dartron closed. Dartron also introduced the Zero Gravity in 2003. This was a modernized version of the Roundup with 33 passenger seating. These rides feature a direct motor drive rather than car tires. They also come with a modernized light display. These rides have proven to be very popular, with several traveling showmen owning them, including Bates Bros of Ohio. Several parks have also bought zero-gravity rides, such as Holiday World. Their ride is named Revolution and has proven to be very popular as it's located near the exit to their Rapids ride, serving as a way for riders to dry off after riding the Rapids. After Dartron closed, their assets were bought by Basixx Enterprises, who still makes the ride today. Basixx also supplies parts for Hrubetz and Dartron versions of the ride.
The Roundup was also popular in Europe. As mentioned before, multiple manufacturers built Roundups under license from Hrubetz. Most of the European Roundups were made by German manufacturers Klaus and Hrubetz in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. There are still some Roundups traveling in Europe. In 1978, Huss made some kind of stand-up enterprise, the UFO, where you stand up in cages without any restraints facing to the middle of the ride. It's somewhat similar to a Roundup, but it goes completely vertical and it's a lot bigger. The ride is approximately 65 feet or 20 meters tall. It has 12 gondolas with 4 people per gondola, so it has a capacity of 48 riders per cycle. It uses the same lifting mechanism and floor structure as the Huss Enterprise. It was available as both transportable and park version and has been discontinued for a long time. Huss made at least 11 UFOs with 4 remaining in operation. 2 park versions at Canada's Wonderland and Gold Reef City in South Africa, and 2 traveling units in France and Germany. And in 1985, Huss made another ride somewhat relatable to a roundup named the Disco Round. In this ride there are 20 gondolas that each seat 2 people, making for a capacity of 40 riders per cycle. The whole structure can rotate up to 24 revolutions per minute and tilts to 30 degrees. This tilt allows the gondolas to get shot up and down by gravity. There are also pneumatic impulse generators under each gondola, allowing for a controlled sequence. The ride was originally completely enclosed. Haas made at least 6 disco rounds and 3 of them are left operating. 2 in parks in Saudi Arabia and Belarus, and 1 is still traveling in Germany. This disco round was completely modified in 2015 and has the roof and walls removed, making for an open-air experience.
Alright, moving on a little bit, we're going to now move into the operation of the Roundup. Here we have Chase, who operated the Roundup at Six Flags America back in 2018.
The cycle of a Roundup is pretty straightforward, even as far as manual flat rides are concerned. All you do is load all your riders in, make sure that they all have a little strap in front of them. That was probably just a Six Flags thing, to be completely honest with you.
Don't know if that was standard.
I'm not convinced that the original models actually featured any form of redundant restraint, but regardless, once those are all secure, you head back to the panel. The panel features a couple of switches, a couple of lights. What these switches are going to do, these switches are going to control the direction of the drive tires that are responsible for spinning the main body of the Roundup, and they're also going to be responsible for raising and lowering the ride unit to its maximum tilt and all the way back to the ground after the cycle is over. The lights that I mentioned are also fairly straightforward. They'll let you know if the ride has any faults. They'll let you know if the ride needs any form of attention, if like a gate isn't closed properly, because those gates had proximity switches on them at the time I worked it. And in addition, all the manual functions of that ride are going to be guided by these lights. So when you start the cycle, you're going to begin by switching the drive tires on. It will start spinning the ride counterclockwise, clockwise, whichever direction you choose.
Oh, then, so you can choose.
Yes, you can. You can choose which direction those drive tires go. So you're going to turn it on. It's going to get up to full speed. A light's going to turn on that will indicate that the unit has reached full operating speed. Once that full operating speed has been reached, that's when the ride is designed to begin lifting up into the air. You'll use the second switch. Hold that until it raises all the way. You'll get another light that indicates that the ride is at its highest raised position. This is kind of similar to an Enterprise where it builds up speed and then raises. The reason it does that is because obviously the ride is structured similarly to something like a rotor. You don't want people slowly looking face down when the original versions of this ride didn't have any form of restraint, let alone a single strap like the Six Flags version has. Then you'll raise it all the way up. Once it's moving all the way, the ride will continue moving at full speed for around a minute. Then, similar to many other flat rides, a light's going to come on indicating that the cycle is over. Then, keeping the ride at full speed, lower it all the way back down to the ground, and then start braking it. You don't hold to brake it, however what you do, you pulse the brakes to create a smooth stop and prevent any damage from being dealt to the tires. So you'll hold the brakes on for around 2 seconds, then let it go for 4, and pulse it slowly until the ride comes to a complete stop over and over and over. Then you'll go unlock the gates. There's 2 gates on each ride unit that you can unlock from inside and from outside so that the ride operator is able to access the unit when they need, and then unload all of your riders. As far as quirks that this type of ride has, the most notable thing about operating this ride is that if you emergency stop the ride, it will cut all power, pretty straightforward. So the unit will come to a stop, it will slowly stop spinning. The arm will stay exactly where you left it. You don't have power to the motor that raises and lowers it. So if you are at a full tilt, 50, 55 degrees even, and you are spinning and then you emergency stop the ride, your unit's going to come to a stop on its side.
That would be fun for all the riders, right?
Oh yeah. That's what the strap is there for, I'm sure.
Honestly, yeah, probably. I'm sure it's happened before.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Alrighty, well that's about everything we have as far as these Roundup rides are concerned. Thank you very much for watching this episode of Flat Ride of the Week, and we will see you next week. Goodbye.